Alright, hello everyone, my name is Disc, and in this video we have a 15 Necrotic Wake with some pretty good examples of mind control tech, which we're going to talk about. But before we start this key, I wanted to give a special thanks to all of the supporters of the channel, really making a difference in making these videos. But if you're newer to my channel, thanks for tuning in. Please consider checking out my Metafy. We have a lot of fun over there with private lessons. We can do video reviews. I can shadow your gameplay, talk about rotation, talk about UI. Also consider supporting the channel as a member. I open up all of my UI elements to my students or members of the channel. And I do have a lot I want to talk about this intro, but I want to kind of do it as a lightning round. So let's see how quickly we can get through it. But first, like always, I do want to quickly flash the talents here and talk about a couple of things. So the only thing on the discipline side is Wheel and Woe. I wanted to give a special highlight here. We have a lot of targeted casts in this dungeon. So my targeted cast weak aura will highlight them white. Pretty much, at least in this dungeon, anytime you see that weak aura trigger, it is a time to Wheel and Woe them. I think a lot of people might count this out as our spot healing, but it certainly is. It just demands a proactive stance. So the targeted cast weak aura is really, really nice for kind of maximizing this talent. And then to maybe take it just one step further. So it's hard to see maybe in my gameplay, but one thing you can do with Wheel and Woe is after you cast a penance, dodge casting smite. So like I might cast a penance and then a radiance or a death or maybe refresh renew on the tank. So I, at least for one or two casts, situationally, I will dodge Wheel and Woe spells just to kind of try and find a better opportunity for a single target shield. And it does quite a bit for mitigating attacks. And then over on the priest side, let's see. So we have all these points into Fade. Really important mini game we have to focus on is playing our defensives. With improved Fade, these 3 points, we need to be playing it anytime you're taking damage. Single target, group damage, all of it. There's not a global here or desperate prayer, so we need to get in good practice of playing that. Then I take Sumi on this one, but I'm taking Prayer of Mending over Holy Nova. We don't play Holy Nova ever, but Prayer of Mending is something you can at least play out of combat. Been having some good success with that, and I just think it's fun. We're going to talk about it more in a second. And then also I'm playing Divine Star. I think there's a big argument to not play this at all. So if you don't want this extra button, you can definitely take it out of your gameplay. But being Necrotic Wake is the biggest AoE dungeon. I think if there's any dungeon you're going to argue for this point, it is this one. So I'm taking Divine Star here. I prefer the instant cast over the cast. Halo's a little bit more free. Divine Star, you have to work for it, but I'm taking Divine Star here. And then quickly I wanted to talk about Vampiric Embrace. This is something I've always loved, but I think now more than ever there's more of an argument to take it. So in higher keys, well I think in all keys, it's all about how we combo spells. Popular combo, Pet and Rift. Also popular combo, Rift and Rapture. But in higher keys especially, we have to do like triple combos. So we could do Barrier, Pet and Rift. We could do Pet Rift, Vampiric Embrace. We could do Rapture, Rift, Vampiric Embrace. So it just gives us one extra level of ways we can, kind of combo our spells. And then quick highlight, Shackle Undead. I don't have the best examples in here, although I do use it. This is to help us with Boss 2. Can really save a pull. Even in lower keys, I don't think it's a bad idea to start practicing and taking this talent point. And then we're going to give a little bit of an expose for Dominate Mind here. So it's a little bit different than my Miss of Tyrannus Scythe video I did last week. But the main reason we Dominate Mind here, firstly it's for the Flesh Crafter, it's for his Cleaver attack. But we're mind controlling him mainly to preserve his health. So as your pet, he still does pretty substantial damage. But we want to try and keep him hostile. He's going to do a lot more damage when he's hostile, hitting friendly targets or friendly fire on his part. But we want to mind control him to preserve his health. You might see a couple times in this dungeon where I even atone him to kind of knock him up a little bit. But there's an argument, I think, to play Dominate Mind throughout the entire key. But the longer you play it, the more at risk you are. So in this key, I only play it for the final boss. But we do have some good saves from the pet there. But a quick little expose on the Dominate Mind. So it's the Flesh Crafter we're after. If you're using my KUI nameplates, all of our enemies are reds, except this guy. He's going to be standing out as orange, so keep a lookout for that. And then we're after his spell called Throw Cleaver. So again, when it's hostile, its friendly fire against its own friends is more substantial, but not to count out when he is your pet, he's still doing pretty good damage with the cleaver. But the main idea here is we're just trying to keep it alive for the final platform, for the final boss. So I think you could argue maybe letting him do his hostile throw cleaver and then mind control him, but I have not found a way to kind of track that spell yet. I'm sure there's a way, but yeah, we really just want him as hostile for the final platform, and then in between, we're just trying to keep him alive with the mind control. And then if you're not familiar with how the pet bar looks, this is it. It is a good idea to kind of get familiar with it and even keybind some of these. So in this dungeon, the only one we really need to focus on is button 3. And this is how we're going to reposition him. So the biggest pro tip for playing Dominate Mind is you have to position him far away from you before it breaks. And I do have a weak R there tracking its timer. This is number 1 priority if you're playing this this talent, is to get familiar with that button 3 and positioning him away from you before it breaks. And that's to give you a buffer to recast. There is always a gap in between one to the next, so we have to send him far away. There is not a global on that, so it's pretty easy to do. You do want to keybind him. And then here is a quick display of the damage, 644,000 per second, really good number, thanks to the AUG and thanks to the pet. But looking at the breakdown, the Flesh Crafter is on top. Keep in mind, this is not accounting for his hostile attacks. This is only when he's your pet, so it's not negligible, even though the hostile is more damage. But it is on number 1, the Entropic Rift is second, and the Void Wraith is on third. Kind of vying for second and third, pretty much standard what you want to see. And then I also think pretty standard, we want to see the Dark Reprimand coming in next place. This is relying on a harsh discipline. This is relying on heavy radiance use. Our Dark Reprimand is a huge spell for us, and there's a lot of talent synergy with this, so making sure we're playing that quite a bit. And then Divine Star on bottom down there, 22 million-ish. So yeah, I do think this is a dungeon more than any to argue for it. A lot of AoE in here. And then quickly here, I do want to splash the healing. This is not something I've talked about much recently, but we see the Atonement on top. This is very standard. It shows the importance of our offensive attack spells, which also kind of dictates my UI. So if you notice my combat HUD, I call it, all of my attack spells are the biggest and closest to my tune. Those are the most important for our heals. So a lot of my UI is kind of dictated by this healing meter. And then Power Word Shields, I think very commonly should be on second. I was playing more aggressive with Atonement Healing here. I could have even played more Raptures, but this is going to show kind of the importance of, and how major our Rapture is. We do want to see Shields in second. And then looking to the right there, this is a quick little standout for the Palm. I kind of like the spell. I think it's just a fun spell to play out of combat, adding to my rotation. I don't think anyone else plays it. I don't know why. It at least gives us some value versus Holy Nova, which isn't played at all. But anyway, it looks like I cast it about 14 times. On average, it hits for 80,000. At most, 120,000. And yeah, I don't think I had good use here, but kind of the only thing you have to do if you're trying to maximize this talent is just out of combat refreshing whatever stacks are remaining, trying to have a 10 stack going into every pull. Not too hard to do, not too much mana. And I think the only bait is if you ever start playing it in combat, every other spell in our book should take priority over casting this. And then pay close attention to all the different minigames of Discipline. So I can't call every single example, there are just too many, but this is going to be an area where you can find a lot of improvement if you practice and give like individual focus to these separate minigames. So the first one is making sure we're getting our Torment spells, aiming for an average above 6. Sometimes we have to settle for 5, but we want to strive for 8. And that's going to be really important for your HPS, your DPS, and your mana regen. And then equally importantly, we have to time our spells. So we have to play our Mindbender in the right time using something like Bigwigs to be the assist. And then if we want to maximize those Torment spells themselves individually, we always have to be seeking executes. That's for Shadow or Death. We always have to be seeking mobs with a dot. That's for our penance. And then all the meanwhile, we can't neglect our schism. So potentially using focus targeting to follow our schism. the very important minigame of playing our defensives, making sure we're always covered with something that's Fade and Desperate Prayer, and then in this key, the minigame of our Mind Control pet. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. Alright, here we go. So I did this key yesterday, and I have already previewed the video back, so I think I'm familiar with this run. Let's see how well I can call it out.
And now
10 stack of palm going into the first pull. But this is a total pug. PIs go to the enhancement Shaman. Find our focus early. That's kind of my biggest defense in a pull like this. So we really want to find the gatekeeper. Even though we're a healer, we want our damage going there. And that first round there, I used the Kyrian weapon. So we did not get a second round, which is good. But notice in these pulls, that's the only enemy spell attack CD I'm tracking. What am I saying? I'm only tracking that spell, the AoE like Death Rain in party. So kind of in theme with less is more, we only need to track the one spell that has anything to do with timing our heals. Okay, so Kyrian weapon was used on first. Couple of dots to start, 10 stack of palm, and this one is barrier. So it's really all about how we combo spells. There's definitely a turning point where you have to combo. So most popular combo is Pet and Rift, which is what we did there, but we added in a barrier. Then in this one, it looks like we are adding in a Rapture. So the combo here is Rift and Rapture. Had it lined up perfectly with that attack. And then you might also notice we have some orange nameplates. So same with Mist of Tyranicythe, all of our enemies are reds, except we have a couple oranges, and these are our potential mind control targets. And we do have some mind control attempts in here. I think there's an argument to start mind controlling, you know, all the way down here in the first room, but I only use it last room, so 10 stack of palm in between combat. Okay, so quickly scanning buffs. Always a good idea to kind of have a plan before an attack. Got palm rolling around. So I didn't really have any like modifier spells, I would call them. So that's like Barrier, Rapture, Vampiric Embrace. So those are all things that we add in with our Pet Rift rotation. Didn't have any, but here I combo the Rift with Vampiric Embrace. So 9 times out of 10, a Pet and a Rift is enough to cover anything. So in a case like that, without a third spell to kind of combo, your best defense is just making sure you hit your rotation and time your spells right. And that's kind of what we did to get through there. And then coming up on boss here, kind of like I was saying a second ago, we always have to have a plan before this attack. So notice I'm tracking the vomit on his nameplate. That is our timer. And you always have to have a plan. What do I do if it's me? And what do I do if it's someone else? I had no Desperate Prayer, no Fade. Or I might have had Fade. So I combo in Pain Sup. So in lieu of Desperate Prayer, Pain Sup is mandatory. And almost pulled those guys on the steps. So good thing I didn't throw. And kind of unique on this boss. I'm not sure if I'm doing it maybe wrong. Chime in if anyone does it differently. I'm not playing the Rift ever on its own. I just spend the time farming the pet down to get it back in between. Yeah, so like right now I have the Rifts but no pet, so I'm just smiting. And I'm only going for these full rotations as a combo. And when you do that, it kind of lines up with the vomit attack, so we'll always have coverage. And then right here also I'm using Rapture. I think this is a very good play of Rapture. So the way Rapture goes, it's very comfortable in my opinion. It's a 30-second window to use these handful of buff shields. You can cast Rapture, play the cooldown just one of the shields on one vomit attack, and then they will last until the next vomit attack. It's like what I did there is I gave the Shaman the first Rapture of the series, and then coated the whole party in the rest of the Raptures for the next attack. And really all you can do, if you've not seen it yet, the best thing we can do as a Disc Priest here, we have the targeted cast weak aura kind of showing us whom is about to get spit on. We really want to shield that person. Pretty much always want to shield. It could also queue in paints up. I don't think this is a bad boss to kind of practice single target barriers. Okay, so going into the next one, what's our plan? It's on me. I'm using Rapture here again, just like I did the last time, so kind of watch how that goes. I just used one there to kind of cover me. Thankfully, we had a double coverage from the Paladin. And the rest of my shields I just sit on so that they cover the next attack. And they're not going to last all the way to the next attack, so what I have to do with these remaining shields is just give them to the whole team. So, like, 4 of the 5 will go to waste, but one of them will get used. And actually, that was not a good example, because they all went to waste. I was going for the Torments instead. Shielded before he was spat on. And now that we're sub 20% on a boss, it's always a really good time to try and get an 8 torment window. And I don't think I get one here. I don't think I get one in this dungeon at all. But I did get a 7. Oh, almost got hit there. Palm out of combat. What else? What else? So I am taking Shackle here. We are taking Dominate Mind. I do have some good plays of Shackle. Kind of just doing it for the sake of it, for like setting an example. Not the best plays, but we'll talk about it. Okay, 10 stack of Palm. All my dots out. I'm finding the darkest red mob in this party. That is my focus. That's where I want to give my damage. Pet, Death, PI, Rift Penance. And then I worked in my Divine Star here early. There's a big argument, I think, not to take that talent point at all. But if you're going to take it, a lot of times it's better used at the front of a pull. And that was 7 torments. Yeah, the idea is it's kind of just a luxury spell. It is, I think, pretty good damage, but you want it to hit all those mobs in a pull that are lesser and are going to die. Okay, so noticing I have a 6 stack of Palm, the idea is we can stack it to a 10. Boom. And this is also, I think, a really good argument, like in this time right here where we're just fapping for a second and gathering ourselves. Why not cast Palm? Okay, we definitely want to attack the human here, the Necromancer. This is a bait of a pull to use Divine Star, but I use it anyway, so sue me. Looks like I've also queued in Vampiric Embrace here. So the nice thing about Vampiric Embrace is it gives us just one more level of spells to kind of combo with our Pet and Rift. And like I was saying earlier, shielded that single target attack there on the Druid. Yeah, we do have single target attacks here. Good to pay attention to those. What was I saying? We do have shields in here too. So if you think back to our hero talents, our executes land much harder on shields. So something to think about. 7 torments. Double shield execute. And then I consider this just a quick moment to charge up. We can fade across. And I mind soothe those two just for a little bit of comfort. Now I'm getting a 10 stack of palm. And we have a lot of AoE in this pull. So I'm going to favor things like the Rift and Star before things like Death. So let's see, I'm pretty sure that's... And I have 15 stacks of palm. Rift, Penance, Star, Death. Really close attention to these cleaves. And not my best torment round. I only got 5, but that is a-okay. Double shield execute. And in this right here, we were not in comms. I think if we were in comms, I might have played it different. Yeah, so here goes my rotation. I think potentially I would have held the pet if I had known we're chaining. But let's just see. Let's pay attention to when the pet comes back in this chain. Maybe it wasn't too much loss. Okay, I did get 6 torments. 15 seconds away. And I send a rift. So half rotation. Yeah, if you're not heard me say it, if you're a little newer to my channel, if you're starting out with Discipline, you should try and aim for this 2-to-1 ratio where we get 2 rifts in a pull, but 1 pet. So that was the half rotation, I call it. Okay, but here we have the pet back just in time, finding the focus target. The darkest red is the big mini-boss guy. And the name of the game here is how many rotations can we fit? Really just trying to pump. Switching targets to preserve my dots, switching targets for executes. And really the best thing you can do with your dots is only cast them at the start of a pull and then manage their uptime with penance there on out. And here in between pets, I spent just a little bit of time smiting to get the pet back. So here goes the second pet rotation. Got 7 torments on the first round. Using penance to keep my dots alive there. And another 7 torments. Okay, going into this boss, we do have some shackle opportunities. I used to think the argument was to shackle the mage, but I think it's actually to shackle the other person. But we're really only tracking one boss timer here, and that is where we want to play our pet and our rift. In the interims, we play our other spells. There is the damage phase on the boss, noticing his nameplate, that is the timer. PI's out, and I don't play any spells on the front end, just buying a little bit of time. So now that we have the ads up, the Land of the Dead phase, this is where we want big dam, big healing. So pet and rift. Working in a radiance during my rift is always kind of what you want to do. And I got 7 torments, a couple of executes off the ads. Never count out free executes on bosses. Ads are always a really good place for executes. And then this is a radiance into rapture. So whenever I can, working in a couple of flash heals to keep my DR procced, whenever we can, you want to radiance into a rapture. Our raptures will hit harder on people that are atoned. That's our mastery. Okay, so we have our spells for the Land of the Dead. Gave the tank a pinch up there just to get it rolling. A couple of executes on the ads. and 6 torments. And then the idea here is you want one of these guys crowd controlled as the phase ends. So he was already taken care of by the Paladin, but just to kind of show an example of using Shackle here, I went and gave him a little extra security. And then, so without Rapture there, I was just flash healing the party. We really want our DPS and HPS in these phases, so I was holding the pet and the rift for when the ads spawned, and I was buying time with flash heals. Grip there just to use it. Another shackle. Let's see how I do this one. Looks like I have Rapture coming up. Radiance right into Rapture. And during the Rapture, making sure I play at least one flash heal. That's for our personal damage reduction. Full Atonement ramp. Sub 20%. Pet, death, death. Rift penance. A couple of Void Blasts. Then the Radiance. Star after the Radiance. And 7 Torments. I think I sent one more Mind Blast here. Just came up and sent it immediately. Followed by a Forced Collapse. So there's no point in holding a Mind Blast here. It's too free of a spell, too quick of a cooldown. So you can play it just kind of for the collapse mechanic of it, which is what I did there. So I sent the Mind Blast, I sent the Rift, gave it 1 penance, and after the channel went ahead and canceled it. I think here we just buy a little bit of time. Ouch, missed my Divine Star there. So that's an example where if you don't play your Divine Star early enough, you might as well just not play it because you're going to lose the value. All of the guys are going to die. Okay, so... oh yeah, watch this Atonement ramp here. It's a little bit wonky. Help pushing. So where the problem started here is I didn't expect a chain like that, and then into this pretty substantial chain I did not have my pet or rift. So I kind of had to do manual healing. Here goes the rotation. Manual healing, radiances into raptures, a couple of flash heals, health potion, all to get atonements and party and set up for the pet. What I'm thinking now is just smite spam. So the pet was a little bit far away. At the end of any given pull, sometimes you have to consider just preparing for the next. Okay, so I have my focus target. Pet death, rift, penance, divine star early, radiance during the rift, like always. A couple of executes for 6 torments. And so the pet is 20 seconds away here. I believe I'm just going to spend a little bit of time to get it back. And that is what you have to do a lot of times. If you can get your pet within 10 seconds, it's worth just smiting for a second. Okay, double executes on the front. Death, pet, death, death. Rift penance. Seven torments and have to move on. So this is our mind control spot. So I'm only playing mind control in the last room. The idea here is we want to take him to the final platform to help with the final boss. And we do get some good plays of that. And so if you watched my Mists of Tyrannus Scythe video, this one is a little bit different. We still have to really be comfortable with repositioning him away from us for the recapture. But the main reason we're capturing him is to preserve his health. We don't want him killed by cleave, when he's hostile and we position his hostile cleaver to hit people, it is much more substantial than when he's friendly, like right now. So we want him to be hostile, we want his cleaver to be hostile, but we don't want him to die before the final boss. So that's kind of the thought process behind keeping him mind controlled. His cleaver, when he is your pet, is not nothing, but it's not as much. Dang, that was only 5 torments too. So I don't know what it is. Sometimes when I tell him to reposition, he doesn't. And that one, he almost boinked me. Never roll out your Psychic Scream as a an assist spell to help you get your mind control off. But the hard part here is, I think that one kind of like scared some sense into me. We can't have that happen on boss. So we really have to pay attention to his timer. And it's not a bad idea to kind of send him far away from you, even a little early. And right here, I was losing some activity time, just making sure I get that recapture. Here goes the rotation. Played my shield there very last, just to make sure I get my Words of the Pious. And if anyone's noticed, no one said anything about it, but underneath my health and mana bars is a third bar for Words of the Pious. There was my recapture. And then here, yeah, I believe I go for just a half rotation. So I had my pet and rift. Now this is just my rift. And if you don't know this, if you're newer to Discipline, the half rotation is pretty free. There's not really much you have to think about, but there are some things you should think about. We have to get 3 Void Blasts. That's for the extension. And more importantly, we have to get 2 Penance while our rift is active. So that's our half rotation. Flipping the Druid back there. So now we have AoE damage in melee. We really have to give a little extra love to our melee Shaman. So pay attention there. And we also have targeted casts. Really good opportunities to grip. But I think I'm the one picked almost every single fucking time. So these targeted casts are really good opportunities for shields. Also, the more you're picked, the more defensives you're going to need. That was a wheel and woe shield to protect the Druid. The nice thing, I've been talking to a lot of my students about it. The nice thing about this targeted cast weak aura, don't underestimate the value of our wheel and woe. It is an amazing talent, and it is our spot healing. And I would say at least half the time, I picked again. At least half the time, a targeted cast is highlighting in party, coincidentally, right after a penance. So we can get a lot of value if we see that. And then I did give a defensive penance into our Shaman there. I think he gets one more too, because, you know, if he's at 65% health, not that that's much of a threat, but if he's picked, that is a problem. Alright, going for a recapture here. And the play of spells here is a little bit different. Instead of a full rotation then a half rotation, we lead with a half then a full. So all we want here on the front end is a little atonement ramp and send the rift out immediately. And the idea here is it's going to cover for the bleeds. And good thing I can aim because I'm getting all the mechanics in this dungeon. Okay, we have a damage amplifier on the boss, that little blood line. And this is the spooky part. So my pet's getting released during the most sensitive part of the fight. It's one of those things you just, if you're going to play Dominate Mind, it has to be your priority. Like, even though this is the damage phase, group needs healing, you have to put his recapture at the top of your list. I'm selected again. Okay. I Rapture to kind of cover after my pet rift. I have a double proc on Harsh Discipline. Spooky, spooky, him coming back like that. It's a pet, death, death. Radiance. Rift Penance. And a forced collapse. Might have been a little bit of overkill there, sending the pet. So if you look at his cooldown right now, 40 plus seconds is not a good place to be ending a pull, and that goes for trash pulls, that goes for bosses. Arguably, I should have only sent a rift there, and I wouldn't be in this predicament. But the way the cookie crumbles is we do have a little bit of time to kill here while we all just strategize. And right here, I'm waiting to be last to go up. I heard that somewhere that the pet doesn't follow you if you don't wait. Do not quote me on it, but that is what I'm trying to do. So we don't have the best play here. I think I understand it now that I maybe messed it up once before. But being that the pet hurts worse when it is hostile, we really want it not to be mind controlled. And the best play here is going to demand some teamwork. So I think what they're trying to say in party is they want me to bring it up here, release it in the corner, and then the druid will root it in place. And this kind of makes it a fixed turret, so it can kind of stay hostile, stay out of the way so it's not getting cleaved, and like continue to be our assist. We still have some good plays in this fight, but it happened to be more luck-based and not optimal. I was kind of fumbling with it a little bit. So I definitely think tag teaming this with your friends is going to be the best way to do it. But we did not have that teamwork here, so you're going to see me mind control him to heal him. Not the best play, but we do get some good saves. Okay, then also noticing on boss, we're going to have a shield bar pop up. Really, the only thing we have to do here as a healer is play spells on the Icebound Aegis. That one was real quick. So you kind of just have to play them as they come. The best solution is a pet and a rift. A lot of times we have to do just the rift. A lot of times also we can ramp a rapture to cover for the Aegis. Barrier is great as well. Okay, here comes the second Aegis. All we have is rift. Recaptured the pet. And you don't get as much value as you'd like on the rift because you have to dance. But that is okay. So we are having some miscoordination here with what we want to do with this mind control. I don't know what they want. Okay, but here goes a full rotation. This is a little spooky. We don't have the team up here. But one of the best things you can do is before the dance, get your rapture off early. So let's say it's a pet and a rift window. We want to pet rift, death and penance and radiance before the dance. As long as you radiance during the window, everyone's covered for the collapse, which is the name of the game. That one was a pain tip on myself just to live. I was out of other defensives. And I think coming up is when we have the really pro save from the pet. I think we have our Paladin missing. Boom. And that was the save from the pet. So if you want to watch that over again, but he was out as hostile, so he's going to be a little bit more of a help. We had 4 of 5 people upstairs. We had a lot of help missing in party. I was actually behind on my heals. And thankfully, we had to throw Cleaver, break the entire shield. So yeah, play that again if you want to. But we're in our damage phase from the Javelin. I think arguably the Javelin could have been played differently. I think the idea is throwing the Javelin to break the shields, not necessarily for the damage. And a little bit behind here. Radiance for the dance. And I'm playing a little bit aggressively here. I'm dodging Rapture. So Raptures are a great spell you can play here. The Pet and the Rift, for the most part, can cover it, which is what I'm trying to do. and boom. So it was a pretty good run overall. I don't think it's that easy of a key. I do get 1 extra point of IO here, which is nice. But this was a total pug I just queued into just for some fun, just to play around. And it ended up being a pretty good key that I guess now I'm adding to my channel. But looking at the avoidable damage, I'm at 0. It's a list of 4 people. That is kind of what you want to aim for as a healer. You have to live. You're such an important role to a group. So the better you can get at dodging damage and preserving your own health, the better. So I'm not going to get into it, but like one of my defensives, like as a person, my hand that controls WASD, my left hand on the keyboard, it only does that. So kind of the way I see it, if you want to know how I play, there's 2 main modes of input, movement and casting. And I think when it comes to the biology of our human brains with 2 hemispheres, the more you can compartmentalize those, the better you'll do. So instead of having all of my casting and all of my movement coming from a maze on my keyboard, I've just divided the 2. So my WASD hand pretty much only does that, and it is a great defense in protecting your own health. You never have to compromise, does my index finger need to move now or cast now? You never have to sacrifice one or the other. You can freely kind of do them both at the same time and constantly guard your health. But thanks for tuning in. A big thanks to all the channel supporters. It's been really cool turning those things on and connecting with the community in a little bit different of a way. But thanks to all of the channel members. I really appreciate it. Please check out my Metafy if you'd like a one-on-one private lesson, maybe a VOD review. Please consider joining the channel as a member if you'd like any of my UI elements. And until next time, Disc.